All right, so we're talking with J.L. Carpenter. We've got some crazy stories for you today. Hope you don't get in this situation, but here's her phone number in case you do. 713-201-6767. Memorize it, write it down, tattoo it on your arm, because these people are innocent. So, but these are some juicy stories. You cannot, this is like better than soap operas, okay? So we're talking with J.L. Carpenter, attorney at law, criminal defense attorney, best of the best, 2024 in the Houston Chronicle. How you doing?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Love doing these stories. Okay, so we're going to be talking about injury to a child, assault by choking a pregnant wife, and now this is common for Texas, unlawfully carrying a gun into a bar. I don't even know how that's a law, okay? This is Texas, but we're going to find out. So the first situation with injury to a child. Now, this sounds really bad, and if you're accused of it, it's worse. So here's the situation. The guy moves in from out of state, meets a girl. We have some of the most beautiful women in the country, right? They're got married. He's got a kid. They have a baby together. And one of the nephews comes over, and these are like 9-year-old kids, 2 boys, and they're in the kitchen arguing over how to wash dishes. Okay, so this guy is in this situation and gets accused of choking the kid. Okay, so JL, lay the story out, woman.
So he's working from home in his home office, and he hears the 2 kids in the kitchen doing dishes, arguing over how to do the dishes. He's trying to give room for the kids to be able to work it out themselves. But it gets to a point where he's like, I got to intervene. So he walks into the kitchen, and he puts his hand on the kid's shoulder to turn him around and give him a talking to and say, hey, let's just work together, man. Don't cause problems. We can do this as a team. And the boy looked up to him, and so he was disappointed that, he's getting on him. He starts to tear up, and the guy's like, it's okay, man. We're good. Let's just work together. That's the end of it.
Okay, so this guy's working. He's got no priors. He's never abused a kid in his life, okay? And he puts his hand on his shoulder, not his neck, but his shoulder, to turn him around like an authority figure would do, to get him to stop going crazy, okay? And gives him a talking to. 4 days later, the stepmother-in-law that is caring for the son that got corrected, or the nephew that got corrected, 4 days later, calls the police and said, that man was choking my child.
Yes. So what happened was 4 days later, now, she was temporarily living with them until she could get back up on her feet. And she was very unstable. She had asked if she could live there permanently for a while, and they had told her no. 4 days later, she calls the police while she's standing on their driveway and says, my son said that this man hurt my son, that he squeezed his neck. So at this point, the kid is in the care of another adult. The police FaceTime the kid with the other adult.
FaceTime.
Right.
Driving down the road, cops call, say, pull over. We want you to videotape the kid's neck right now. Right.
They take pictures, send it to the police. The police, they even say on body cam that they don't really see anything. There is nothing on the kid's neck.
I have one question.
Yeah.
No matter who I call, they won't answer the damn phone. How did the cops get her on the phone?
I have no idea.
Everybody wants to text you. Just text me.
Yeah.
But somehow she answered the phone.
I don't answer the phone for you.
Amazing. Exactly. And I know you.
I make you text me. No, so they take pictures. There's no injuries there. But what happens is the officers do their investigation. They ask the woman, do you want to press charges? She initially said, yes, she wanted to press charges. She later changed her mind. But so they call the district attorney. District attorney can only take the facts as they're given at that time. They don't know the whole story, just enough for probable cause. And they decided to arrest this man for felony injury to a child. This professional who's never been in trouble before, who just put his hand on the kid's shoulder, gave him a talking to, and they arrest him. So
got to go to jail, get bonded out.
Yep.
The guy never did anything remotely to deserve that. Now his pictures up on Facebook and all over the internet with this accusation that did not remotely happen.
Right.
And now he's having to defend himself.
Because you think about injury to a child, this is not what you think of, right? I mean, injury to a child sounds horrible.
Oh, it does sound horrible.
And this was not what happened. So we presented to the grand jury and turned in our packets, made our argument. The woman's other children all wrote letters saying that she's not stable. And the grand jury returned a no bill and dismissed the case.
Dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, one of the themes that you need to listen to when you're listening to these stories is dismissed, no bill. I mean, when you have great representation that knows how to dig and get the facts and validate those facts, those people should have never been accused. They were innocent, okay? And J.L. Carpenter proved their innocence. Now, there's a story we're going to talk about here that you're going to learn that all attorneys with a shingle on the wall are not the ones that need to be representing you in criminal court, okay? And you're about to learn why. So, married couple expecting a baby, right? This is assault by choking.
Correct.
Right? So, married couple expecting a baby, not getting along. Hubby goes out, has some beers with his buddy. Mommy's not happy. Comes home. She attacks him, and he pushes her away because she's hurting him. Right.
Right.
And she's mad. And, you know, women are hormonal and they kind of overdo things when they're pregnant.
Hey.
Hey, I'm stating facts, okay? I'm sure that's in a psychological book somewhere or a psychology book. Anyway, so he takes and right in this area basically just pushes her away because he didn't want to touch her stomach.
Right.
And what happened?
So what happens is that when he's out having drinks with his buddy, she's upset, calls. He finally comes home. He gets in the shower. She tries to get into his cell phone. She can't get into it because it's locked. So when he gets out of the shower, she's so mad, she throws his cell phone at him, hits the shower wall, breaks his phone, starts attacking him, scratches his chest, pictures of the scratches on his chest. So just like you said, he didn't want to push her off of him at her belly, so he pushed higher. He said, I don't remember exactly where I pushed. I just knew I didn't want to hit the baby. So he pushed her off, and then she leaves. And he's like thinking, well, I guess she went to her sister's house around the corner, maybe to cool off, whatever. He goes to bed. Now, he's sound asleep when the cops come busting through his door. She had called the police and met them at the house to make a report of this assault. And so he had boxers on. They didn't even let him get dressed before they took him out of the house and put him in the police car.
The wife was not assaulted. Right. She was doing the assaulting, and she went and filed the report.
Right.
That's crazy. And then they jerk him out of bed and drag him down to the police station.
Right. And so, and they ended up deciding while the case was pending, they're going to work this out. And in fact, they just had the baby last week. Congratulations to them. But there was no signs of any choking whatsoever. We presented that case to the grand jury, and the grand jury returned a no bill and dismissed that case too. But here's the thing.
Dismissed.
If I were the prosecutor accepting the charge, I don't know why they didn't charge injury on a pregnant person, because it's the same range of punishment, it's the same type of felony, and it would have been easier to prove that type of case rather than choking. But they took a choking charge, and that's fine by us because we were able to easily defend that. Dismissed.
Is that the one where the lawyer quit?
That's the next one.
That's the next one. Okay. Okay. Juicy ones last. Okay. So in that particular situation, I do not know how the wife wakes up the next day with no conscience and everything is just supposed to go along down the road like it never happened. I just don't see how you overcome that. And, we all have the wives had the wives with the instigators, right? And I could just visualize all that brewing at her sister's house. And, I'm sure she's probably shoving coals on the fire. You know, he was out with a woman. You know that he was at her house and they had sex. I'm just throwing flames on the fire to get her sister to go file this complaint when nothing happened. Other than she attacked him.
When I first met with him, when we first consulted, I asked him, I said, well, were you really with a woman? And he goes, no, I seriously was with a dude. I was with a friend having a beer.
That's such a tragedy. You know, it's just, you know, we're just in a new world today, you know? Okay. So the next story that we're going to tell you is something that probably a lot of us would be put in this situation. Unlawfully carrying your gun into a bar. We're in Texas. I don't see where that's unlawful, but there are rules. So this guy comes in, goes into the bar, and he actually didn't have his gun on him at this particular time. But he's getting drunk, having fun, and these chicks thought he was a little creepy. So they told the owner, hey, that guy's creepy, get him out of here. So they literally just removed the guy and didn't give him a reason. They just tossed him out. And he goes to his car, and then now he has a concealed carry license in another state. How does that work? Does that work across state lines, or you got to call and get one from each state?
No, if you're legal to carry, you're legal to carry.
Okay. So
here in Texas.
But he knows he shouldn't be doing that, right? In any case, he goes back into the bar. So what happens from there?
So he's standing in the bar, and he says there were no women around, that they were setting up for a party, that he was at these high tops, and that out of nowhere, the owners just asked him to leave. He didn't like the way that went down. It hurt his ego. It made him mad because he was a regular customer at this bar. So
was he a tall gentleman?
I'm not going to go into all that. So he leaves, and he goes to his car, makes the decision to grab his handgun, and he's going to go back and talk to the owner, who he knows because he's a regular. It was a poor choice to ever go back and grab his gun, but it was not illegal.
He was drinking. We don't make good choices when we're drinking.
Right. So he never makes it back inside the bar with the gun. He's stopped by the bouncer on the outside, and then they decide they're going to call the police. So police arrive, and now you got two guys giving the story. You got the bouncer and you got the owner. And so the police are talking to the bouncer, said, did you ever see him have a gun in the bar? And he's like, well, no. And the other guy, the owner, says, yes, he pointed a gun. Let me take it from here. So bouncer backs up.
The owner said that he saw him point the gun.
Saw him have a gun. I can't remember if he said point exactly, but saw him have a gun, right? Literally 30 seconds after he makes this comment to the police on the body cam, he walks over to the officer and he goes, so that man was really holding, huh? Didn't you just say
this is the same guy that said he saw it?
Right? So you have two conflicting stories. But here's the other part. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the client did have a gun inside the bar. There was no signage. They told the officers they had a TABC 51% sign posted at the establishment. But there is no sign there. And I know because we sent an investigator inside and out. And to this day, there is no signage at this bar. So even if he had carried a gun into that bar, they didn't have proper signage about that.
51% liquor?
Right.
Yeah.
So in the end, so he had another lawyer and paid good money for that lawyer. They set it for trial. The offer from the state was time served on a misdemeanor. And he said, I'm not taking time served for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
I mean, you can make poor decisions, but that doesn't make them illegal decisions, right? So he fired that lawyer, came and hired us. We got it off the trial docket while we negotiated with the prosecution. And then today they decided to dismiss the case when I was getting ready to put it back on the trial docket.
Dismissed, okay? The reason that guy got fired is because that attorney does not want to go to trial. He is not a trial attorney. He's a lawyer. He probably processes the hell out of divorce papers, okay, and can write the hell out of a contract for your business. But when you're into criminal defense, you need to prepare to go to trial, intend on going to trial, to get the DA to quit because they don't want you presenting the evidence that you've compiled to present at trial. Okay. If the DA thinks that you're not that guy, oh man, they're going to bring out a sledgehammer. And the attorney tried to get him to plea that he's guilty. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. He did not do anything wrong, but his representation is saying, I think we ought to take this, Bob. I think this is a good idea, you know?
Not to mention that this case had been pending for like a year before we got involved. And I did some research on the two guys that had contradictory statements on the body cam. They both had been recently arrested in a different county. They both had pending cases where they were defendants themselves, right? Now, that would not be admissible at trial. But I said to the prosecutor today when we were discussing the case, I said, your guys have open cases. And he goes, what does that matter? It's not going to come into evidence. And I said, it tells you the quality of your witnesses. And he was like, oh, I've put worse witnesses on. I said, I'm sure you have. And then we kind of laughed about that. And I said, but I brought that to you, right? You wouldn't have even known that, but for me bringing it to you. Now, why didn't the other attorney do that? I don't know.
Okay, so one of the things that you're going to find is that she is a bulldog, okay? She will go through every body cam, all the camera video from everything that's feasible, and she will go through it and through it and through it, and she finds stuff like that. I mean, that if you're accused of a crime and you go to jail, you definitely want JL Carpenter as your representation. So you can find her online at jlcarpenterlaw.com. And trust me, memorize this number. We're living in South Houston. Everybody's getting arrested for something. So if you're not guilty, 713-201-6767. See, I have it memorized.
Thanks, Mike.
You're amazing.